Hello and welcome to FedEx Routes Pickup and Delivery 101. Today, Route Authority is going to give you a quick overview of pickup and delivery or P&D routes with FedEx Ground. For those not familiar with Route Authority, we've been in the industry for over 10 years, provide due diligence support services to potential buyers of FedEx routes, bookkeeping and payroll services to existing FedEx Ground contractors, as well as business plans and other items for both current and aspiring FedEx Ground contractors. So at the core of FedEx's business model is using contractors rather than FedEx employees to provide services. So many don't know this, but there are thousands and thousands of FedEx contractors out there that provide what are known as pickup and delivery or P&D services for short to FedEx clients. Um, these contractors, with over 54,000 vehicles out there, uh, pick up packages at the station, deliver them to businesses and residences, and any packages that have to go back to the station, they pick those up as well and bring them back to the station for FedEx to process and move on to their next location. The FedEx ground stations are located across the U.S. If you visit our website, routeauthority.com, under the education section, over our years and years of experience, we've compiled hundreds and hundreds of station locations. FedEx Ground uses numerical identifiers to name their stations. An example here, we have a station in Bishop, California. Its number is 932 and it's located on Airport Road. But as you're looking at FedEx routes and say, hey, I want to become a FedEx ground contractor and provide P&D services, please feel free to visit our website, see where there might be a station near you, or if you're looking at some FedEx routes for sale, you can kind of see, hey, where is the station at, whether the stations are around it as well. So let's dive into what does it really mean to be a FedEx P&D contractor. There's three basics. You got to have trucks, and they have to meet FedEx ground requirements. At the end of the day, the requirements are fairly straightforward. They're going to be white in color. They're going to have some DOT labeling requirements. They'll have some lock requirements, some technology requirements in the areas of video event data recorders and things like that, but fairly straightforward. Then we're going to have your employees. So as a contractor to FedEx Ground, you must use employees or what are known as W-2 employees. So you cannot use contractors to contract with FedEx Ground. Um, the requirements are pretty straightforward. They have to have some training and pass a road test, meet some, I'll say, historical requirements of not having certain accident and violation history, as well as various background checks and things alike. And then the final thing, of course, is you have your trucks and you have your drivers ready to provide services with FedEx Ground. You need packages and an agreement. And that agreement is known as the Independent Service Provider Agreement. And in that agreement, it says this is where you're going to provide service. It has zip codes. It says this is what you're going to get compensated. The terms under which you can provide services to FedEx Ground, and of course, what vehicles you're allowed to use. It's important to note that when you're providing your vehicles to FedEx Ground, you're leasing them to FedEx Ground from an operating authority standpoint. So you don't have to go get your own DOT number or your operating authority from the Federal Motor Carrier Administration. You're operating under FedEx's Motor Carrier Authority. So the independent service provider agreement is what you really want to know about, because at the end of the day, that's your agreement with FedEx Ground. That's how you get paid. That defines how you're going to provide service and many other things. So the first thing I always want to note is it is a fixed term agreement. It has an end date. So you're going to hear a lot of folks that market FedEx routes that incorrectly use the words renew. These agreements do not renew. Now, follow-on agreements are possible if certain conditions are met, and that's known around the metal status of the current FedEx ground contractor. It's gold, silver, or bronze. If you engage somebody like Route Authority, we'll educate you in what is gold, silver, and bronze. Are you buying something that could literally, die in 3 months because it's you're not going to get a follow-on agreement and things like that. So it's very important to reach out to someone to learn all about it. But at a high level, they don't renew, but follow-on agreements are typical if the metal status is in one of the more favorable statuses. Um, the ISP agreement itself has numerous schedules and attachments. Some of the key ones, as you're doing your due diligence or thinking about getting into this industry with a sample agreement from FedEx to review, is the attachment A1, which we'll talk about just in a minute. That has the service area that you're going to cover. The Schedule B shows what trucks the contractor is allowed to use in providing services. Um, Very important, we want to get paid, right? So Schedule C and Attachment C1 have the rates that FedEx Ground is going to pay you for the services that you provide. And there's two different service types within pickup and delivery. There is known as ground, and it's very straightforward. You're going to a business address, and end of story. E-commerce, you're going to a residential address, end of story. You're going to hear things like smart post, home, all these types of things. They're just going to confuse you. So it's real easy. Ground is to a business address. E-commerce is to a residential address. Very straightforward. There's inbound attainment. At the very beginning, we talked about you may have to pick some packages up from a business or a home and bring them back to the station as a contractor. The inbound attainment is making sure you get those packages back by a certain time period, and that's also in that agreement. And just a little interesting note, as follow-on agreements are negotiated, there is a important process that is known as the proposal capture and analysis. And there's a tool called PCAT. And this is FedEx Ground's model of potential revenue. So we know in this industry there's a lot of estimates given by sellers and brokers and things like that. The best estimate out there is FedEx's estimate of the contractor's revenue for the next 12 months or whatever time period is. So it's an important thing to always ask for and know about from that aspect. So diving into the how do I get paid, right? So the Schedule C has various information on how the contractor gets paid by FedEx. And within that is an attachment C1, and compensation rates are negotiated. It isn't, everyone gets the same rate or everyone gets the same, amount of packages or anything like that. It is negotiated, but the components are the same for everyone. So there's going to be fixed and variable components of your compensation. There's going to be the biggest item is what is known as a weekly service charge. That's just for you showing up and getting ready. You're going to do the job you're supposed to do, and you're going to get compensated a certain amount each week for showing up per se. Then you'll have various stop charges for what are known as the e-commerce, which is to the residential points. You'll have ground stop charges, which are just known as stop at this point. Those are the business points. Um, there'll be fuel surcharges. FedEx Ground does not reimburse for fuel, and this fuel surcharge does not cover fuel cost in any way. It covers a minor portion of it, of your fuel costs. But again, it's important to know and understand these, compensation attributes, how they're calculated, what are the risks of them, and things like that. So that independent service provider agreement is also going to have an attachment A1, which is the defined contracted service area. It's a good point in time to tell you that although we've used the word ourselves of a FedEx route, it doesn't exist. There's no such thing. It's a colloquial reference for simplicity. So since there is no such thing as a FedEx route, well, what are we talking about, right? Well, we're talking about contracted service areas. So FedEx Ground contracts with contractors to provide service in a defined geographical area. They don't say here's 10 routes or 12 routes or anything like that. Once you have a contracted service area, you as a FedEx ground contractor decide how many trucks it's going to take you to deliver each day. That could vary. It could be, 5 on one day, 6 on another, 10 on a heavy day with a lot of packages. And that's all up to you, right? But when you see marketing information or, someone says 12 FedEx routes for sale, I really don't know exactly what they mean because there's no such thing as a FedEx route and there's no such thing as a quantity of them. What they're probably saying to you is on average, it takes 12 trucks and 12 drivers to serve that territory each day. But again, that's on average. So some key things to know about a contracted service area is the distance. Some of these are very far from the station, and it may take you 2 hours to drive from the station before you're even in your territory and start to deliver packages. That has some operational challenges with it, so important things to analyze. The other thing to look up is the number of residential and business points in those service areas. Um, you know, we've seen this is a mall or major business closing. Um, you know, Business customers have choices, right? They could ship with UPS, they could ship with FedEx. So you'll always have the risk of a major service delivery point in your service area switching providers. They may say, you know what, I don't want to ship with FedEx anymore. I'm going to go UPS. Other way around happens too. Hey, I'm sick of UPS. I'm switching to FedEx. So you could gain from that. But we've seen sometimes where a mall is closing or things like that, and volume is going to significantly drop off. So you just need to do your due diligence on the service area. On the upside, we've seen some great opportunities where the brokers don't know, they don't look, they talk at very high level and rah rah type stuff, but we've helped a number of potential FedEx ground contractors who ultimately became FedEx ground contractors analyzed their service area where we found some extraordinary opportunities on the number of building permits being issued. So their service area was literally getting ready to double in the next year or two because of building permits being issued, large apartment buildings being built, new housing developments being built. So this is typically in some of your growing metropolitan areas. Downtown New York City, unless they're blowing up a building, obviously this isn't something that's going to impact you, but just things to consider as you're looking at this. We talked about, there's no such thing as a certain quantity of FedEx routes. Again, you have a service area. It may mean, you're using variable amounts of trucks each day to service it, but it's just, whenever you hear advertisements, just know that there's no such thing as, so many specific routes being issued by FedEx Ground. It's just for simplicity to help people understand it. It's not uncommon for a CSA to change over time if the FedEx ground contractor has been a contractor for several years. It's likely their contracted service area has changed over time. So as we said earlier, ISP agreements do not renew, but you can get follow-on agreements, and sometimes those follow-on agreements are a little different. Sometimes FedEx says, hey, you got a little bit too big, so we can't let you be as big anymore. So they may scale you back in your follow-on agreement. So again, that's important if you're buying, right? Like if it's too big and FedEx Ground is saying we're going to make you smaller, you obviously don't want to pay for something that's going to be smaller the next year. So important things to really consider. There is opportunity as well. If a contractor ceases to operate in a station for whatever reason, sometimes they'll divide up that service area and give it to contractors in the building. Other times they'll just bring in someone new off the street. And sometimes FedEx Ground just says, we're going to change up the service areas a little bit as follow-on agreements are negotiated and people become, eligible for follow-on agreements. But again, all of these things here I just stress, there's a lot of detail here, and this is like an iceberg. I'm telling you what you can see above water. As we all know, icebergs are enormous under the water. And please hire an advisor, whether it be Route Authority or someone else, to help you understand all the things you should be looking at, because that's where you can get in trouble a little bit. Just to recap on some highlights of the ISPA. They can be 1 year, 2 year. We've seen a couple 3 years over the years. Very, very rare. They expire. They don't renew, but you can get a follow-on agreement potentially. And in our experience, at least, it's common to get a follow-on agreement. It's not guaranteed, but if someone's selling something, you obviously have to look into it more, because are they one of these people that knows that they're not getting a follow-on agreement? The compensation is negotiated. The service area, again, is a defined geographical area. It's not a quantity of routes or anything like that. Your vehicle and driver needs are going to vary by day of the week, within that service area, based on the volume that FedEx Ground has in their network for that day. And then you're going to be responsible for all your daily operational activities. FedEx Ground isn't going to be telling you what to do. You're going to have technology helping you. You're going to have management staff helping you, and you're responsible. No one's going to be holding your hand, so making sure these packages are delivered and picked up. So how do you get FedEx P&D contracts? Well, it's pretty straightforward. There's two ways, right? So the first way is to get them for free from FedEx Ground. So FedEx Ground has a big recruiting site called buildagroundbiz.com. If you go there, dozens of opportunities are posted each week. We've seen over 100 posted in a single week, based on the time of year, typically when agreements could be getting closer to expiration, and the contractor that's currently servicing the area is no longer eligible for a follow-on agreement, or is ceasing operations for whatever reason. So most contractors that have become FedEx Ground contractors became a contractor through option one. It's just a fact. Now that said, that's over time, right? So if you're not experienced in this business, you're not a current FedEx driver or manager, you're going to probably struggle if you start from scratch and try to get into this business through option one. FedEx Ground will interview and will talk to you, but you'll just want to be getting a lot of help and advice from professional advisors if you choose option one. And that said, I encourage everyone, even if they're considering purchasing FedEx routes, to go option one, because there's no cost to it, to at least talk to FedEx Ground and hear from the horse's mouth what it is to own these, operate these, and what the financial margins are. So you may hear something very different from a broker or a seller of FedEx routes than what FedEx may tell you directly. Then, of course, you can buy, and there's value in buying in many situations. It's an unregulated industry, though. Just know that, right? So there's no Consumer Protection Bureau. There's no rules and regulations about who can, offer these for sale. There's no licensing. The person that calls themselves a FedEx broker isn't licensed by anyone. So, example, a real estate broker and agent, they take classes, they get accredited by their state, they have to get continuing education, they have to agree to certain things. FedEx brokers have none of that. They aren't accredited, they aren't educated, they aren't certified. They just put on a hat that says I'm a broker. So just know that it's an unregulated industry. So if you do decide to look into that option one of getting directly from FedEx, or want to talk to FedEx Ground directly, go to their Build a Ground Biz site. You can actually have them reach out on that site to have them call you. They actually run ads too. If you sometimes Google FedEx routes, a FedEx ad will pop up directly from FedEx pointing you to their Build a Ground Biz site, as they look for contractors to replace exiting contractors. But again, mixed success here. We do offer an RFI offering service for those that are interested in this. We'll say it's extremely successful on the line haul side, successful in the P&D side. But again, we can help you get in the door, but you have to have the capability and ability to manage these and run these. And sometimes you have to get your feet wet by buying them first. P&D is a little bit harder to just start on day one. And of course, the option two is purchase these from an existing contractor. So it's an asset sale. You're typically not buying their business. I wouldn't encourage anyone to do a stock sale in this industry at all. But you're buying the remaining term and the end date of their current agreement, right? So that could be 3 months, it could be a year, it could be 6 months. There's no guarantees after that, right? So just know that, right? And you're probably buying the vehicles. You don't have to. You can go get your own vehicles, and maybe they just have a fleet of junk trucks, and they want way too much for those junk trucks, and you just say, look, I don't want your trucks. I'm going to go get some new trucks from Hello Truck Lease or Bush Truck Leasing or whoever, and maybe they'll help keep your maintenance and repair costs lower with brand new trucks and things like that. So the only thing you have to buy is the existing agreement. But I can't stress enough how important it is to hire an independent advisor and consultant in the buy process. Again, this is an unregulated industry. We've seen companies out there that sell routes that also provide buyer support for the same routes they are selling. As a real estate broker, I can tell you in my state that is illegal. And you can't do that because it has ethical concerns at so many levels. So just know that, right? It's an unregulated industry. The brokers can do whatever they want. So you have to be very business savvy here and think, okay, there's no protection here from any law or anything like that. So I'm on my own, and so please, you don't hire us, hire someone. I literally mean that, someone other than the broker or consultant that is trying to sell you routes. I cannot stress that enough. The biggest question that we get asked here at Route Authority is, what are FedEx routes worth? As they consider buying them under, what we've referred to as option two here. And we will tell you that many FedEx route brokers will push EBITDA on you, earnings before interest, taxes, depreciation, and amortized items. They'll sometimes call it a cash flow, and they'll say it's 3x, 4x, or 5x. And I will point you to the upper right-hand side of this chart, Warren Buffett. And I will say exactly what he says. References to EBITDA make us shudder. Is the seller or broker essentially telling you that the tooth fairy pays for capital expenditures? So they're valuing this business based on tooth fairy type of mentality, I'll just say. We don't value in this way at all. We think it's kindergarten. And what brokers are really doing when they do this, and why it ranges so high from 3x to 5x, whether it's vehicles that are 20 years old or 2 years old, is because they're actually setting the sales price based on the maximum they think you can get a loan for. Which, hey, they're trying to maximize the value for a seller and maximize their commission, right? But know that, in the industry, from financial professionals, the way that brokers value these is unacceptable. It's not how you would buy a business in I'll say outside of amateur hour and kindergarten. So if you're going to buy in this space and you do a 4x or 5x of an EBITDA, I will tell you you're going to be sad. You are going to have buyer's remorse, and I will guarantee you that. And so just know what you're doing here. You can get these obviously free, for, you're going to put a lot of hard work and sweat into it if you do that method. So there's value in buying these. But the biggest thing is that these FedEx routes are extremely capital intensive. The cost of vehicles are high. New transmissions are $8,000. New motors are $20,000. and you consider downtime with rentals and all those types of things all in. And so just know all that. Many of these are good, profitable entities and have good, what is known as free cash flow. But if you follow this 4x and 5x of this kindergarten mumbo jumbo out there, you will have buyer's remorse. And we're just going to leave it at that. So at Route Authority, our goal is to make you a successful new contractor, and we've done that for dozens of people each year. Um, Now, some people come to us and say, "Oh my goodness, I wish I would have done this differently." Sometimes, and we help them, make their business more profitable and things like that. But we've accumulated the top 5 things for those that said, "Oh, I like my FedEx routes," or sometimes they say, "I want to sell them. Please, dear God, get rid of them." But we don't sell FedEx routes that are troubled, I'll say. Um, but here's the 5 mistakes that they said, and we pass this along as you are considering this, right? First thing is they used the same company that was selling the routes to give them advice. And that's a conflict of interest. Again, I'm a real estate broker in several states, and that's illegal. Again, this is an unregulated industry, so they're allowed to. You're the foolish one if you actually think it's okay, and I'll be very blunt. So there's no one protecting you. Um, Second thing is you overpaid. This goes back to the valuation. If you're doing that 4x and 5x stuff, I would tell you, and don't take this personally, you shouldn't be buying any business because you're not doing valuation methods that professionals use. Route Authority uses the same ones that business professionals use. So you aren't going to find anybody at Route Authority doing a 4x or 5x of an EBITDA. We're going to do the discounted cash flow, and we agree with Warren Buffett that if you don't do that type of thing, you are relying on tooth fairy methodologies. The third thing is too focused on financials. These are businesses that require employee management, truck knowledge, and experience and business savvy. If you don't have that, you may be able to learn it successfully, but you are probably going to struggle the first year, and that's okay, right? If you're okay with that, just know that these aren't the easiest things since sliced bread. This is just like any other business. Nothing that is good is easy. I'll just say from that aspect. The fourth thing that we consistently hear is they thought that the broker package was actual numbers and actual information. So broker packages, they call them prospectuses sometimes, they call them marketing packages, they call them all types of things. It's marketing information. Marketing information is a commercial. That's all it is. It has things like pro forma in there. And the definition of pro forma is hypothetical, right? It talks about e-commerce growth rates, which are somewhat related to FedEx, but e-commerce growth rates are much higher than FedEx package growth rate. So there's a lot of information that's not even applicable in this marketing packet, but it's a marketing packet. It's just information. It may or may not be relevant to your particular opportunity. So just know that. And then the last thing goes back to the EBITDA thing of, hey, if you rely on EBITDA, you think the Tooth Fairy pays for new trucks and major capitalized repairs of those trucks. So if you're not understanding vehicles and replacement of vehicles and major capitalized repairs, which would be on a balance sheet, we've seen some people come to us and say, I didn't even ask for a balance sheet. The consultant I hired didn't tell me to ask for a balance sheet. You probably did number one on the mistake list here, and then and it just goes downhill from there, right? And then improved financials we see all the time. Those are possible, but you just have to know what you're doing and how long it's going to take to achieve them. So just wrapping things up, right? At the end of the day, you can buy P&D routes with FedEx. You can get them directly from FedEx Ground for free. You're going to bring your trucks. You're going to bring your drivers, and you're going to have this agreement from FedEx Ground. How can we help you? Go to our site. There's plenty of learning and information there. We author RFI responses for FedEx Ground if you choose option 1. Option 2, you'll need one as well for the private party sale. The core of our business is due diligence support, valuation, and consulting. Feel free to engage us. We have a 1 hour call that people say they learn more information in an hour than weeks with, a broker or some of these consultants that are out there on YouTube each week. And we also do SBA business plans for lending. We're quite good at that. We have an SBA conforming business plan service we offer that seems to be very popular as well. Feel free to give us a call or make an appointment or send us an email if you have any further questions. But good luck in your FedEx route ventures, and I hope this video was informative.